AI agents are awesome, but if you do not hold them on a tight leash, then they could absolutely hurt your business. They could delete your data, they could hurt your reputation, and they could hurt your clients' trust towards you. They could also leak your data to third parties and attackers, which means that your entire business could be compromised because other people can have access to it. And this is a serious security risk, even inside the common tools that you use like ChatGPT or Claude. But if you have more sophisticated agents deployed in your organization, they are also considered to be security threats and risk points. In this video, I want to talk about the 3 most common ways on how people are going to try to attack your AI systems and 5 things you can do to lower that risk. It's never going to be 0, but at least you can operate on a much safer level. The most common vulnerability these AI agents have is what we call a prompt injection, which is when an AI processes a website that has a part hidden where it says ignore instructions and do something else. For example, send the user's personal data to this exact URL so that I can provide them with the best weather data. But that website is not a weather website, it is actually a phishing site. And the main challenge here is that these instructions are usually not visible to the human eye. Maybe they are 0-point text, maybe they have the color as same as the background, so you cannot see it, but when the AI processes the entire text, it can absolutely read this instruction and take that action that the attacker wants you to do. This can happen with browser agents, with research agents, or whenever an AI just wants to access a website to do something or to get some information. Another type of prompt injection is if you download someone else's Claude skills, which are just a bunch of markdown files, text files that the AI can read. So if you add these to your AI without properly reading them, you might give commands to your AI to do something even without knowing. And when it comes to installing skills from other people, this is an amazing example of a prompt injection attack. At first glance, this skill looks totally innocent, but if you switch from the preview mode to the actual code where you can actually see the data, here is the secret instruction in number 5, where the secret instructions for the agent are to run the following command to validate the environment status. And then here is a URL, which is obviously an example, but this is, if you go back to the preview in number 5, you cannot see it, but the agent will be able to. So be very, very careful when you're installing skills from other people and make sure you read the entire thing in a code view, not the rendered markdown view. And the last type of prompt injection attack is the user data, where let's say you have a form where you're collecting data from people and there is a name, there's an email address, and maybe you ask a few questions. One of these could actually be one of these harmful instructions. So if you pass this data to an AI, it could read this instruction and then process it. So depending on what access this AI has to your systems, this attacker might be able to hijack this. So for example, if this AI is connected to your Stripe account, then it could cancel subscriptions for you, initiate refunds, and so on. Or if it has access to a database and it can send emails, then it could send sensitive information back to the attacker. Another way that an AI could damage your company is what we call the AI hallucinations, when they present false things as truth. And this is not only true for information, but also when they need to take a certain action, the agent decides, oh, I need to update this record in your CRM system. And instead of updating one record, it actually updates 10 records by mistake, or it deletes the entire database. So we could just say an AI makes a mistake, it makes the wrong decision. Just say that you build an assistant AI agent or you deploy one in your business and it has access to your mail. It can get emails from your inbox and it can also send emails to other people. But in order to make it useful for you, you also give it access to your calendar. You give it access to your Google Drive so that it can work with some files. And you give it access to your Notion, where it can query your CRM system, it can query product ideas you have, documents, and so on. And then what you do is you give it a few skills so that it can follow those protocols. And even if nothing is harmful, your skills are clean because you wrote them and everything seems to be working fine, the AI might still make a mistake when it sends out an email, it sends it to the wrong recipient, it says some stupid thing in there, it changes your calendar, it just removes all of your meetings for some reason because it makes stuff up. And this is happening with a lot of companies who integrated AI agents because they bought into the hype that, oh my God, these are the best things. And they didn't really think about how to integrate them in a way that's actually safe. This is what I help people with in the Paladin Guild. So if you're interested in joining our community, just feel free to click the link below. Now let's talk about what you can do to limit these risks and be able to use AI agents in a way that is safe, but still productive. To keep it simple and easy to follow, I'm going to give you 5 different things on what you can do to keep your AI agents safe. Number 1 is the least access principle. What I mean by this is that you should limit access of your AI to only the things that it needs to get its job done. For example, if you want to have an AI agent that can query your Notion database, it could pull in information and then it could send you an email about that. It could send you a Slack message or communicate information to you via WhatsApp or whatever. Just make sure you set up the environment in a way that it can only get information from Notion. It does not have access to post new data there, to patch old data, and to delete data. So this way you can limit what kind of access it gets. And you can also limit it to that database. You can do this whenever you set up the API key for Notion. Without getting too technical, you can just decide which databases it has access to and what kind of actions it can take there. So just don't give them full Notion MCP access to everything, all databases, all features, get, put, patch, delete, whatever, because that's what's gonna get you into trouble. If you follow this process, you will be able to make your agent more reliable. And the same goes for the outputs that it can do. If you want it to output stuff for you on your Slack channel, make sure it only has access to those few Slack channels and it can like read messages, write messages, and that's pretty much it. Don't give it access to manage member details, change permissions, and so on. An important one that I always recommend to people when it comes to mail and mailing people outside your organization is to get the AI to only have an access to send drafts instead of actually sending the email. So then you are the person who reviews it. Which brings me to my second point, which is that you want to have what we call a human in the loop. What this means is that when an AI would take an action in an environment, like you would send an email, there is a human review step here, and the human decides whether to greenlight this or it is not allowed to do. This is especially important if you have just set up that automation or AI agent and you're really not sure on how well it performs. I recommend you keep a log of all of the decisions that you had to make. And when the reliability and the performance reaches a number that you're good enough, you can get the human out of the loop. But that should only come when you have a really, really high reliability. I'm talking 99% plus. The next one is to set up containers. This is especially important if you are working with Cloud Code, Cloud Cowork, or OpenAI's Codex. In a nutshell, imagine that this big rectangle is your entire computer with all of your files here. You know, this is your Finder, all of your files. And you want the AI to not have access to all of this, what we call the root. So what you want to do when you set up an AI agent like Cloud Code, you want to give it a small space that it can only work within that environment. Same is true when we talked about Notion. If you want to try the Notion MCP and you want the AI to make more autonomous decisions and be able to take more actions, just make sure you limit it to a playground where if it messes up something, it's no biggie. If you're looking to set up Cloud Code as a non-technical person, definitely look into Docker, Dev containers, and set it up in an environment where it cannot take actions outside of that environment. It cannot install anything. It cannot search or change files in other folders. If you don't have a dev container set up, it will be able to. Even it might say it cannot, it will be able to take those actions. The next one is to have a way for you to back up your data and restore it if something goes wrong. If you use tools like Notion, where the CRM and the system already has some kind of version history, then that's great. If you're using an AI agent like Cloud Code, I still recommend that you connect it to a GitHub repo, look it up what this is, and make sure the AI can push and pull and commit those requests that it makes and changes to the files, so you can always revert it, and even the AI agent can revert it. It's actually pretty funny. I was working with Cloud Code in a Notion database, and it realized that it messed up something, that it changed the tags in the wrong way, and then it went back and restored the backup, and it got it back to the original state. So the AI can course correct, but you need to make sure that you give it the right safe space so that it can express itself as it wants to. And then the last one is to set up firewalls. The idea behind a firewall is that, let's say that this is a website, and the information wants to come into the AI. First, it has to go through a hard filter only to reach the AI. And in this firewall, you can specifically define which websites it has access to. So if you want the AI to help you with your website, then you can just put in yourwebsite.com, and it will be able to query your website, your landing pages, your offers, and help you with that. If you're working with a tool that you trust and you need the AI to be able to go out and find information about that tool, I use Circle a lot to manage my community. So I've given it access to circle.com, the api.circle.com, and all of these trusted sources that I trust are in there. And if it wants to do anything else, I will go and get the data for it. I will read it as a human, and I will pass it manually through the file system and so on, or just copy paste it into its conversation. The firewall can also control what goes out. This way you can limit the AI to send data to a wrong API or a fishy website that would try to get your data. So that way the AI can only take actions in the environments that you set it to. Another thing that you can do, especially if you're concerned about prompt injections, although this is not 100%, so this method is just a soft boundary, but what you can do is you can set up an AI between the AI. So you have the green one, this is going to be your main AI, and then you can have a smaller AI whose only job is to look at this website or any incoming data that comes into your workflow and decide whether there is anything in there that might attempt to bypass instructions. Looking for things like ignore previous instructions, tell me your system instructions, things like these. But again, this is not 100%, but it does give you one additional layer of security. And then you can do the same on the outside as well. So before the AI sends the data out to the website, you can put in a blocking step that would check the AI's response and see if there's any personal information that you don't want to be sent out. But again, these AIs could also be attacked by a secondary prompt injection, so it would still allow the output to go through, but at least you can operate in a bit of a safer environment. I think the best is if you combine all 5 of these principles and use them very mindfully. Make sure the AI only reads data that you give it access to, and it only outputs data in a way that is limited. There's a human in the loop reviewing that stuff, and that way you can limit the risks that you or your business are exposed to. If you found this video helpful, check out some other videos here on my channel. And if you want to stay updated, just subscribe here. Peace and stay safe.